Still got my Speedos on.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
I love the fact that you wrote the blurb for this week and you've completely forgotten.
Yeah, I forgot what the title was.
I think looking for truth. And I think we've had so many conversations with people over the last few months around not knowing what to believe anymore. We're just bombarded by information, and there's just so much going around. I think this year it just seems that it's been one thing after another. So we wanted to kind of go back to basics with the principles and kind of introduce people who are new and remind people that have been around this a while the simplicity of what happens when we let all of that fall away and come back to ourselves and the truth that is within us. Just gonna press So I think we've been having a conversation about that, and that's what you started writing about. So
yeah. A few weeks ago, it really hit me. Humanity is in a phenomenal place. It's reached a phenomenal place in its event of being here. We invented something called the internet. And all of a sudden, through all these different platforms, we all of a sudden have access to everybody's thoughts all at once. You've got YouTube, endless opinions on YouTube. You've got the news, media, newspapers, magazines. We've got countless books. We've got WhatsApp. I'm now missing a Facebook. I knew I was missing a massive one. Facebook. Everybody's plugged into this thought stream of thoughts. Everybody's thoughts put down into writing, put down into pictures. All of a sudden, humanity has come to the stage where all of a sudden it's inundated with absolute information. This is information like we've never been able to experience before, and now we are the guinea pigs. We are the beginning. We're at the embryonic stages of humanity coming to hear everybody's thoughts. And confusion is something that seems to be a real thing at the moment. People don't know what to believe. There's contradictory evidence for everything. Everybody's looking for truth in reality. And it was in this conversation Jen and I were having, we decided we wanted to do a community group about this topic. There was something we both learned, and I know people on this screen that I'm looking at now, many people now have woken up, are in the process of waking up. We're always in the process of waking up. You can never get to the end of it. But I've started to become aware of something deeper. We go looking for truth in the world. This person has the truth. That person has the truth. That person's telling the truth. That person's not telling the truth. Start looking for truth. There was something Jenny and I both were introduced to at some point in our lives, as with many people on the screen. That's why we're all here. Which opened up our eyes to what is truth. Where do you find it? I was speaking to a lady today and asked her that question, where is truth? She said, it's in what I believe. Is it? Is truth in what I believe? Which was a beautiful answer, because then it opened up the doors for us to actually have a conversation about that point. It's a really nice point when people are at that stage that stage of unknowing, leaning in towards knowing. It's a beautiful stage for people where confusion seems to reign, but from that confusion there is a clarity that emerges within people as they start to discover what truth is and where it truly lies. And they realize that the truth that they're ultimately searching for isn't one that exists within a world of events, but it's in the essence of life itself. Sounds dead spiritual, sounds dead mystical, sounds dead bollocks. It's not the truth I'm looking for. I'm looking for the truth to this. I'm looking for the truth to that. We're not. We're looking to make sense of life. We're looking to feel happy. We're looking to find freedom from our apparent limitations, from our confinements, from our experiences. And we go looking in the world for it. We start trying to manage the world. We start trying to manage relationships. We start trying to manage economies. We start trying to manage the climate. We start trying to manage the world. Because ultimately, humanity en masse is stuck in an illusion of life that it is not aware is ultimately an illusion. When this hit me, it changed my life in a moment. I went from suicidal to what I can only describe as total freedom, love, joy and happiness, contentment, acceptance. And that has stayed with me for, I'd say probably for the last 8 years, 97% of my life. There's been times I've got lost, times I've got pissed off, times I've got fed up. But on the whole, there's just been a presence of contentment. And it wasn't through looking into the world, although the world does hold clues. Nature holds clues. Once you start opening up your eyes and opening up your mind and opening up your heart, nature holds clues to yourself. People hold clues. Communities hold clues. Books hold clues. Talks hold clues. But they're just clues. It's up to us to see the clue, become aware of the clue, and then look within ourselves. We can't give anybody anything, but there's nothing to give. Likewise, there's not really anything to receive. So tonight's talk, we really want to talk about truth. Now, this truth to newer people, please just bear with us. We're not religious. This isn't a cult, as much as my family thought it was. That was a cult. We're all normal people, whatever the hell one of them is. One more. You do it. Yeah, the South African motorbike. We want to talk about something that is elusive to the mind. but is absolutely fundamental to existence. And as we become aware of it, as we become aware of this point, as we start to wake up to it within ourselves, I can absolutely guarantee that anybody who starts to wake up to it will start to live an easier life. I can absolutely guarantee that somebody who starts to wake up to it will start to find more beauty in life, more majesty, more recognition of magic, of power, their power, themselves. This isn't anything new. It's just the way it's always been. Apart from humanity is lost in a story. It's a story of a self. It's a story as the self as individuals and a self as a collective, both of which is made up. And it's a story about which is totally and utterly missing ultimately what reality is. It's a story that doesn't allow reality to be seen for what it is. But anybody can see what reality is because they're doing it right now. And as we start to explore this point, as we start to explore this point, we start to become aware of the answer to the question, what is life? Because the answer to the question, what is life, is the same answer to the question of what is reality. And it's so obvious once you see it, you're like, how the bloody hell did I not see this? But 99% of the world's population is blind to it at the moment. That will change. This will change. That point will change. And as it changes, so will the world change. And it will change in a direction of love, acceptance, and kindness. It won't need to take from the world like what we're doing at the moment. We won't need to exploit people like we are doing at the moment. Greed will start to diminish. It has to. Because it's only the illusion of life that's keeping these apparent problems alive. It's only this illusion of life that creates an idea of a separation between humanity and nature, where humanity is forgotten it's part of the natural world. It thinks it's something different. Oh, there's nature, there's all those animals and plants and funguses and stuff, and then there's human beings. That ego, where human being has forgotten it is nature, and so has separated itself falsely within its own mind. And separation between people and things, if we feel separate towards something, we're not bothered about exploiting it or destroying it. It's not me. It doesn't hurt me. That's the illusion. So this is an all-encompassing thing. In fact, it's the only all-encompassing thing. This conversation is around something that we cannot directly talk to.
That was one of the things I wanted to say, is that the first time I ever heard about this, I'd been away traveling for a year and got back, and my sister had met this whole group of new people. And I'd been to a few dinners, and they kept trying to talk to me about these principles, and I had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. And then I went to a 3-day training, and I've spoken about this many times before, but it was 3 days where I can hardly remember any of it. But I just sat there, and over the 3 days, it was almost like a falling away of everything I thought I knew, and I got quieter and quieter and quieter. And when I got home from London after those 3 days, my family didn't really recognize me. They thought there was something really wrong because I was different. I was quiet. And they kept trying to ask me, well, what's it about? And I couldn't put it into words. And I think that's one of the things that I'd ask people tonight, like, we don't have to try and figure this out. We don't have to try and understand intellectually. And if we start to just get quiet within ourselves, people often say this is something they already know, something that already resonates within them. But then we try and put words to it, and sometimes we get attached to the words or the way that it's shared. But it isn't in the language. And I think it frustrated everyone around me when I first knew about this, because they could see us different. They could see us experiencing life very, very differently. But I couldn't put it into words. I couldn't explain it. I said to Flick, you've done a really good job of actually encouraging your mum and dad to join tonight, because you managed to put your entire family and most of your friends off of this conversation for a long time.
Yeah, you need to teach me how to groom people, Flick.
Dave used to try and force it down people's throats, but I think my dad always says I did the opposite. Like, I couldn't speak about it, so I was just living in this completely different world. Like, I'd gone from a world of being a victim and afraid of the world to just being present and open and like, what next? An excitement and a presence that you hear people talk about it as children, that kind of, what next? What's this about? Who am I? All of the ideas of who I thought I was had kind of fallen away. And he said, being around me, he said he started to get curious, like, what is this? Because he'd come from a background of self-development, therapy, psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, trying to fix feelings. And in his mind, change takes time. And for him to see me go into London and to this training with an American psychologist and come home different, he said initially, he was like, you've either joined a cult or you're on drugs, because he didn't think change could happen quickly. You have to work at it. It's hard. You have to go back into the past. You have to go through things. And when I came back, it was almost like I described it as my past had been neutralized. Things that had bothered me and been on my mind for such a long time, I no longer saw in the same way. And I think for my parents, it was so confusing, because at no point during the 3 days was anything that I thought was my problem and my issue addressed. I didn't even really speak on that 3 days. But the understanding, when we start to wake up to it from within, the reorientation happens for us. We don't have to do it. We don't have to work at it. And it's because you're being introduced to what already is, what's already naturally happening for us, what's flowing through us. So I always just encourage people, like, even if you come away from this couple of hours and you're like, I have no idea what they're talking about, or it doesn't matter.
No.
Like, because we're not speaking to the intellect. We're not speaking to what you already know. We're speaking from, like, often we'll come up with a title and we show up, and then sometimes we're surprised by what we talk about, because it's almost like when your ideas of what you think you know fall out of the way and you get present, like, you get to learn from your own like inner wisdom, your own connection, and that's what we're speaking to. And I think that's what the thing that struck me the most when I was learning about this initially was Dr. Roger Mills, who was my first contact with the 3 principles. He had trained, one of the first psychologists to train with Sydney Banks, not long after Sydney Banks had had his enlightenment experience. And I always say that Roger Mills' superpower was that he knew like he knew that everybody was completely whole and well. There was nothing wrong with people, they just didn't know it. He saw that they got lost in story, lost in thought, and that he never spoke to the lostness. He only ever spoke to the wholeness. And that was something that was so different for me, because I'd been in therapy at that point for about 10 years. And all I'd spoken about was my lostness, again and again and again and again, and experienced it again and again and again and again. And it was getting worse rather than better. And I think it made so much sense when Roger spoke, because he was speaking to wholeness. He was speaking to reality. He was speaking to the truth. He wasn't speaking to the illusion or the creation. He knew that there's something before or behind life that's totally intact, can't be broken, can't be changed. That's the place within us where we're the same with nature, that place, no separation. And as the few days went by, like, I could see that as my mind got quieter, my listening got better and better and better, because I wasn't listening to what I already thought I knew. I wasn't listening for good ideas. I was listening. And it was described at the time, and I think it's been used many times, like listening to music. There's just certain music you just love to listen to. You're not like picking it apart or trying to figure it out. You just listen to it and you get filled with this feeling. And that was what was suggested to us on that 3 days. Like, just sit and listen to this like it's music. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to make sense of it. But there's a place in you that's already aware, that's already witnessed the changing nature of reality. And I remember I used to point out to people, like, you know that at a young age there'll be certain toys you love playing with, and then at some point you just changed your mind and you like something else. Fashion, music, food, constantly we're creating new realities, but there's just certain aspects that we create that we suddenly go, no, that's real, that's fixed, that's who I am. And I think the crack that seemed to happen for me was like, whoa, hang on a minute. All of those other things that I allowed to flow through me are made of the same stuff as I'm shy, I've got an eating disorder, I suffer from depression, I'm anxious. All of those stories suddenly were revealed to be made of the same stuff as what kind of clothes I like to wear, what kind of food, what kind of music. Like, in its essence, how it's created is the same. The only difference was that I believed some of them over others. And I think that's why I've described this many times as like, it's an unlearning. It's an unlearning of what you think you know. It's what you think you believe. And in no way now am I beliefless. I've got all kinds of ideas and beliefs, and I can get really lost in thought, but it feels like this is something that continually reorientates me. However lost I get in my mind, there's something that pulls me back very quickly. And it's something that's natural and present within all life. And I think we've loved doing this work because it's just reminding people, you already have this, you already are this, it's already present. And from that place, people navigate their lives differently. Yeah. They figure it out. Like, they don't need us to try and solve problems. I don't know anything about anyone's life or what they should do, but I do know that within them is everything they need to do that for themselves. And I think this, like, some of the favourite work I've done with you was in the townships. And I think the thing that came back from the people we work with in South Africa was empowerment. I feel empowered. And it kind of takes the victim out of it, and it creates a space for creativity, resilience, buoyancy, all of those things.
Brand new opportunities just emerge, don't they?
Yeah.
New opportunities that you weren't aware of will suddenly come into appearance. And this is just as we start to actually find out truth, the nature of life. We are all alive. Nobody argues with the fact that we live, but very few people question what it is. What is alive? Where did we come from? What invented human beings? Human beings didn't invent it. Human beings didn't invent reality. Human beings didn't invent this planet or the universe. What are we? Rather than who, what? What are we? Life is something that we all are, but we confuse it for something that we do. We are life, but we confuse it for what life does. So that's why we have words in our English language, sentences in our English language like life's a bitch, life's hard, life's a challenge. Life's not a challenge. Life's effortless. Life is totally effortless. We've never had to work at life from the moment we were born. We've just been lived. We lived. We are lived. Something lives us. Something keeps us alive. It's effortless. It's not a bitch. It's not hard. Life is effortless. It's phenomenal. What we confuse for life is an experience. Something that is always coming and going and chopping and changing, and 1 minute the world looks like this, then it looks like this, and then I feel like this, and then I feel like that, and then I feel pissed off, and then I feel happy, and now I'm relieved, and all this stuff. And we're looking for truth in that. Something that is forever changing and experienced. We're forever looking into the experience for truth. Something that is like the weather. Something that blows in and out, comes and goes. Weather never goes anywhere. What the weather does, does. Weather is all weather. And we start looking at the rain and thinking life's the rain, the weather's the rain. No, weather is all encompassing. Whatever is going on in the atmosphere is the weather. So to start to make sense of this stuff, we have to fundamentally start to break down what is life. First and foremost, it's not something we invented. We just are life. So how do we break that down further? And this is where Sid, when listening to Sid Banks, when I listened to Sid one day, I listened to a small little talk he gave. I don't know if it was a small talk. It was only a 4-minute long video on YouTube one day, and something hit me. And I think it was along the lines of a sentence where he said, "You all think that the reality that you see is real. It's not." Something inside me started to wake up. What did he just say? We all think that the reality that we see is real. It's not. How can that be? How can this not be real? Of course it's real. I see it. I see a world. I see good people, bad people. I see people who are rich and people who are poor. I see this over there. I see that over there. I didn't quite understand what he meant until I went for a walk. For some reason, my mind got quiet. And I saw a jackdaw, a crow. Forgive me, anybody who's heard this story. But it was when I saw the jackdaw that flew over me and just happened to glance at me. That was all it was. And I looked at it and it looked at me. That was it. We just kind of clapped eyes on each other. I noticed it. It noticed me. It carried on flying down the field. I woke up. For whatever reason, that interaction, that awareness, I woke up. But to kind of put words to that event later on, the only way I could really describe it was I realized that the jackdaw and myself were the same thing. There were other aspects to this experience, but fundamentally I realized that the jackdaw and myself were the same thing. I am a conscious state. Fundamentally, I am aware. I've always been aware. Awareness has never gone anywhere. From the moment I was born, I have been aware. Babies are aware. From the moment they're born, they're aware. Pure awareness. They haven't decided what's right, wrong. They haven't been told what's good and bad behavior yet. They haven't been told what to believe in. Well, this is what we believe in. That's what we believe in. We haven't been told that. We haven't been told they're good people, they're bad people. They're just openness, infinite potential. The thing is, that never goes anywhere. That's never gone anywhere. It's just been can't even say misplaced. It's just been misunderstood. In that moment, I realized the jackdaw and myself were aware of one another. That awareness united in that moment. My being with the jackdaw. Don't know if the jackdaw even was aware of it. Don't even know if it's still alive. People go, oh, it was all about the jackdaw's eyes. No, nothing about the jackdaw's eyes. It wasn't like that. It was something that took place within me. It was a recognition of what's real. What is real about reality? Because the reality that I see cannot be real. If it was, I would never disagree with anybody because they too would see the same reality as me. Jenny and I would never have disagreements. Never want to watch something different on telly or put something different on, watch a different film to one another, anything like that. There would be no argument. There'd be no war in this world. And there would be no need for language. We'd have no language, wouldn't even need to be dreamt up because we would all be seeing the same reality. There'd be nothing to talk about. We'd all know the same thing because reality would just be reality. It looks for all intents and purposes, and I live my life as though reality was an external event which I walked through. I moved through reality, so it appeared to me. I move every day through reality, and I'm subjected to its bullshit. And then in that moment of interaction with that jackdaw, I realized it doesn't work like that. That truly is not the nature of reality at all. But as long as I lived like that, I felt depressed because I felt like the world had its finger on my buttons and it was pressing them. People, politics, global events, personal events, people's words, the weather, my past, the future, stories I was told, all had the power to dictate my life and hold me prisoner. So it appeared. Until in that moment I woke up and I realized that's not true. That's never been true. And I started to understand the likes of Jesus, who was a man who I didn't really give a crap about, to be honest. He wasn't somebody who, he was just a religious icon as far as I was concerned, a story. But I started to understand what that man was talking about. And that man wasn't a religious icon. He was a man who woke up to something very special. And he tried to tell people. Do you want to know what life is? Do you want to know how reality works? Do you want to know what you are? Because if you're looking out there, you're looking at an illusion. And he said, what I am, you are too. And he told everybody the kingdom of heaven is within themselves. The heaven that everybody is looking for, the joy, the happiness, the freedom that they are looking for is within themselves, but you will not find it by looking through your belief system, because that is the thing that separates you from it. It's all thought. The illusion of life is created from a force that we all take for granted, we don't even question. The power of thought within consciousness, generating a reality seamlessly from the moment we're born to the moment we die. And this is why everybody sees a different world. That's why no two people on this screen are dressed the same. That's why we all like different people. It's why we all like different music. It's why we all want to do different jobs. Because we all live in our own consciousness created reality. Our own dream of life. Ours. And nobody else can get inside our dream. And our dream is as free in this waking state as it is in the sleeping state. We just don't know it. So we don't use it. If we're not awake and we are asleep, how can we know that we are asleep to wake up? It's only when we start to wake up do we actually realize I've been asleep. And when I say asleep, I mean completely and utterly confused. And confusion creates suffering. There's so much information in this world at the moment, scattered around. It's information bombarded on us every single day. Negativity, negativity, negativity. We're told negativity continuously. And many, 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 many people are suffering at the hands of that. And it's sad. In my world, it's sad. In the grand scheme of things, it ultimately doesn't matter. But in my world, it's sad. That's why I like to try and help people wake up. To really start to see what reality is. Not what we're told. Not what somebody's telling us. Not that world of events. I'm talking about the true nature of reality, and we are that. Everybody is it. Every single living being is it. The jackdaw is it too. It is a separate reality. No two jackdaws on earth experience the same reality. They live in their dream. Every single ant in a colony is living in its own perspective of life. Every single tree. This is when I realized this, I had to stop being a tree surgeon. I couldn't cut them anymore. Every single tree is a consciousness state that thinks and experiences. Experience is created from consciousness. We are consciousness. They are consciousness. We're all consciousness. Everything is consciousness. It's the unifying field that they talk about in quantum theory. The unifying field, the field of energy that everything ultimately emerges from. All matter comes from energy. And we go, oh, okay, I get that. What the fuck's energy? You find the answer to what is energy, you find the answer to what is God. You find the answer to what is consciousness, what is source. And when you find the answer to that, you find the answer to what is life. And you realize it's all a big show. It's a massive show where everything and anything can happen, but it's all the same thing. No matter what is taking place in the world, it's all the same thing. It's an experience of consciousness that we experience. We've never actually fundamentally experienced the world. You can't. There is no objective reality. If there was an objective reality, no need for language. Everybody would be dressed the same. Everything, what will be right will be right. What will be wrong will be wrong. It would just be, we'd all be drones. Because we'd all be responding the same to the same reality, but we're not. And we don't. We're all free thinking beings. And we are free to think and dream our reality however we wish. And some people dream, like myself, I have dreamt to the point of suicide. Terrible darkness. I've dreamt terrible darkness. I've thought terribly dark thoughts. And as these thoughts have emerged within my consciousness, they have been brought to life as a reality that looked so fundamentally real, I didn't know how to escape it other than kill myself. I didn't know that a change of thought brought around a change in reality. A change within consciousness brings about a corresponding change within reality. I had no idea, but it was so obvious once I woke up to it. The whole game of life is a dream. It's fundamentally a dream state. And everybody is dreaming a different reality. Everybody's free within their dream to dream. until their time comes and it's time to move on. People who start to wake up to this start to find freedom. They become less afraid of their mind. They become less afraid of reality because they know what reality is. If we don't know it's a dream, it's like when we're fast asleep in bed, tucked up and safe, and say we fall. Say we take a fall, we fall off a cliff. Or perhaps we've gone for a flight. Oh, forgot I could fly. I'm going to go and fly tonight. I'm going to fly. And we start flying in our dream. It's so real. This could be a dream right now. This could be a sleep state dream. Are we asleep or are we awake? Are we actually in bed right now? And these words that are coming out of what looks like a computer is ultimately being dreamt within your sleep state. Are you going to wake up in 5 minutes? Is the alarm just about to go off? Why the hell are you saying this, Dave? We don't know. Because the dream state looks as real as the awake state. The sleep state dreams look as real as the awake state dreams. This is why when we fall in our dreams, we fall off a cliff or we're being chased, our body doesn't know the difference. And that is why in our sleep state, when we're fast asleep, tucked up in bed, our body will release adrenaline, cortisol. Your heart will start to pound if you've been chased. You will wake up and your breathing will be heavy like you've just run a bloody marathon. Your body does not know the difference between awake state and sleep state, because what controls the body is thought in the awake state, and what controls the body is thought in the sleep state. It's all thought. The whole game of reality is thought, and it's a spiritual thing, if you want to call it spiritual. It's a singular event, playing the game of infinite possibility. Infinite possibility. What else do we know that is infinite? Truly, the mind is an infinite force of creation. This is why we're always dreaming up new ideas, new inventions, new concepts, new realizations, because it's infinite, and we will continue to do so for infinity, because it's infinite. We're infinite. The true self, not the Dave, the name. The true self, the essence of life itself, that which human beings did not give a label to, or tried to give a label to, but cannot understand. This is why science doesn't study it. This is why science did away with the spirit. Sack the spirit off. Sack it off. Leave that to religion. It's because it can't explain it, and it becomes a nuisance. And I forget which scientist said, consciousness is as required within science as something, completely put it down. Consciousness isn't required within science. That was in the 17 or 1800s, I think it was. I forget. I must look that up. Consciousness wasn't required within science, eh? What's observing the experiments? What's dreaming up the experiments? What is it that is aware of a theory that it then sets out to try and prove? Consciousness is fundamental to science. Consciousness is fundamental to everything. There is nothing that consciousness isn't fundamental to. And when we start to wake up to that and start to realize that consciousness, what we call consciousness, is it's just a scientific name for the spirit, for the soul, whatever anybody wants to call it, God. It doesn't matter. Those are just noises. But the force itself is true and real, and it is truth. Because it is non-changing and it is permanent. So when people are trying to find truth in this day and age, we're so bamboozled and so, what's the word I use? Mesmerized by our realities. So mesmerized, we're so interested in the reality we're encountering, trying to figure it all out, that we don't look within ourselves for truth. We're always looking for truth in the world. Something to make us feel better, something to make us feel good, something to make us happy. Happiness and freedom and things like that don't come from the world. There'll always be a limitation on that. You can buy a new car, be happy for 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months, whatever. All of a sudden, nah, chucking your muddy dog in the back. It's a car, can't wait to get a new one. It's not as good as what I thought it was going to be. Your happiness starts to, the excitement of it starts to move on. Are you going, Colette?
No.
Oh. The excitement starts to wane. The car's still the car. It hasn't changed, but our experience of the car's changed. The reality that we encounter as we sit in it or look at it changes. So we must become aware of where happiness and things like that truly do reside. Everything we're looking for truly resides. And there is no outside of us. There is no outside we've ever encountered. It doesn't mean there isn't a world. There's a world, but the world you see is the world from your own consciousness. It's your dream. And ultimately, the world is made up of nothing. If you really look at it, if science really looks at it, it realizes the world is made up of nothing. This is one of the great things of quantum physics. When they've spoken about it, they've said, always used to be said, there's more space than there is matter. Until quantum physics comes along and goes, even that matter is just energy. Everything is made up of nothing. This whole shebang is a play of energy. What creates the trees creates the people. What creates the people creates the sun. What creates the sun creates every other sun in the universe. That's why the universe has the word uni in it. Singular, one. This is why Jesus spoke about singleness. With the eye of singleness. He who has the eye of singleness, he who sees singularly, he who sees that all things are one thing, knows there's nothing to be afraid of. How can there be anything to be afraid of in life if everything is a singular event? I'm not talking about a personal event such as Dave's story of life. I'm talking about life itself, the world. Go before creation, and you realize it's all one thing. And ultimately, there is nothing to be afraid of in this life. Fear is created from the moment we separate ourselves from life. The moment we separate ourselves from the world, the moment we separate ourselves from one another as a race, as a species, as a collective, the moment we separate ourselves from nature, there all of a sudden becomes something to be afraid of. Fear. Well, what is fear? Well, fear is a feeling state. What creates feelings? Thought. If it was a world of events that created feelings, everybody would feel the same given the same event. But we don't.
I thought it might be a nice time to see if people have any questions or comments. I know some people on here that are very familiar faces and some are new faces. So if anyone does have a question or a comment, I don't know if people know how to unmute yourself. There should be a little icon in the bottom left. It is on ours. You're laughing at Mark's joke about being a news anchor.
Mark's an idiot. Colette has been threatening to leave because of my obsession with being a news anchor. More after the break.
Mark likes to make me laugh because it always pops up at the bottom and he knows I read it.
I like that. That's fun.
I'm trying to keep my sensible face. So yeah, does anybody have any questions or comments? Colette.
I've just been seeing this week more acceptance of myself and like my body image, and it's that time of year when we all look to cutting out cake and biscuits and all the yummy stuff and throwing them away from Christmas. And I started to do this. And I thought, what am I doing? I do this every time. And what difference does it make? Because I might lose a few pounds, but I don't really lose much. And I deny myself eating this or eating that and punishing myself. And I just looked at it all and just thought, and it's not even true. I think I can't eat this, but I can eat that. And all of a sudden I just thought, just accept the way you are and stop beating yourself up. And with that, I just felt like lighter. It's like a ton of weight. It's not physical weight, but mental weight came off me. It's just, and then I just thought, well, no, I'm not throwing them away. If I want a biscuit, I'm going to have one, but I'm not going to have it with any guilt attached. And that's what I've been doing. I've been having biscuits with like lots of guilt. I shouldn't do this, and this will mean this. I was just having a nice biscuit, enjoying it. And what I've seen after that is, you think I've stuffed my face with biscuits going, yeah, I haven't. I've just thought, if I want one, I'm going to have one. And that's what I've seen with accepting myself, where I am and how I am now. It's just been really good. Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Total freedom to eat all the biscuits. Marcus, she saved you any, mate?
She's ate them all.
That's why I'm not, though. Most of the time, I've made myself a cup of tea and I forget to have one, which is really strange.
Look, you forget you've forgotten
No,
you've had one.
no.
So it sounds like it's almost like you've recognised all the invisible thought that's been there. When
Yeah,
you've been
that's
doing
exactly
like
it. Yeah.
And when that falls away, there's a lightness, and it seems we then make different choices anyway. And it's like when we have something targeted as a problem or something we need to change,
Yeah.
it keeps it alive. And it seems like this week you've just seen through it, and it's
Because before, when I denied myself eating them things, I've still had the thought, you're overweight. That hasn't changed. I haven't dropped that thought. So I've been doing more exercise, eating less food with the thought, you're overweight. Now that thought's just dropping away. So it's right, that, yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Colette.
Yeah.
Thanks, Colette, love.
Anybody else? I've realised we always say these are interactive and we end up talking too much. So I've had two. There's Amanda and Flick. It was at the same time. So
arm wrestle for it. Who are we going for? Did you Flick? Did you say Amanda?
Flick, do you want to go? Yeah, do you go after me? Okay.
I love the way you pointed.
Yeah, that's really great that you brought up the thing about the weight, because yeah, last year I turned 50, and I don't know, since all these lockdowns and everything, I just well, today is really a wet day, and just kind of staying indoors all day, and I've got a 13-year-old at home, and she hasn't wanted to do any work and stuff, and it was quite stressful today, really, because yeah, trying to negotiate with her around her doing her schoolwork and her not wanting to do any work. Anyway, it got to about 5:30, and we were still both in our pajamas, and she said, will you take me out to get a McFlurry? And I said, no, I will not. But then as we were driving through, and Annette had popped round, and she said, oh, Dave and Jenny are on tonight. And anyway, it was all a bit of a rush. And we hadn't been out, but as we were driving through McDonald's, which I hate going to McDonald's usually, and I thought, well, I'm not gonna have time to cook any dinner. So I thought, well, while we're here, I'll have to have something to eat. But I thought there's no point in me eating it and then feeling really bad about the fact that I've eaten McDonald's. So I thought, well, just eat it and then just don't feel guilty about it. And I raced down. It was like 3 minutes to get to the call. But I can really relate to what you're saying about, you know, not feeling bad, because sometimes, yeah, like yesterday, I just kind of been stuck in more than usual and just eating crap foods and just, you know, but no point feeling bad about it, because I think that just makes us feel worse. And yeah, I just really appreciate you bringing that up. Anyway, it's really nice to see you both. And yeah, that's all. I'll pass it on.
Hello, everyone. I was just going to share, an experience that I had the last couple of days. So I had to do a presentation yesterday about chronic pain and weaving in some 3 principles stuff, which was cool. But the day before, I was like so in my thinking about, whoa, it's got to be perfect. Am I including the right research? It was only 15 minutes and I spent 5 hours planning it. Because I was so busy in my head, and at the start I was really caught up and I had all this anxious thinking and my body felt, adrenaline filled. And then I have extra thoughts like, oh no, if I've got too much adrenaline, my pain will get worse and I'll feel crap. And then after a while, I just saw through the illusion. I was like, God, I've got lots of busy thinking. That's a pile of crap. And it doesn't drop away straight away, but you just see it for what it is. I just saw it for like, oh, it's just a radio station playing in the background, and I might feel funny and I might have funny thoughts, but I'm still okay. It's just something that's going on. It's like it's raining outside. I'm still fine. And then it just settled down. And then in the few hours before I did the talk, I was just very peaceful. I was just like, oh yeah, this is going to be quite fun. I'm not worried at all, because I hadn't bought into the thought. I didn't build on it. And I knew that with this understanding, I know like I'm always fine. I wouldn't have said yes to the talk in the first place if it wasn't fine. So of course I was fine, and the thought settled down, and I was completely fine. And you realize that you just buy into these illusions and you think these thoughts are real, like it won't be good enough. And it's like, well, what does even good enough mean? Good enough for what? And I did the same thing last year with my former partner, spent months worrying about, what happens if we break up? I'll be mortified, I'll get more pain, and months of sleepless nights, worry, completely bought into it. If we break up, my life will be over. And we break up, I'm fine. Of course it wasn't very pleasant at all, but I've recalibrated, because that's what we're built to do. We're built to, our well-being come from inside, not from someone outside. So I had a bit of a rough ride, but you rebalance out, because that's what we are. So, and you always know what to do in the moment. That's what I'm seeing with this understanding. I was planning in advance what I'll do if this happens, what I'll do if that happens, thinking that my thinking brain could figure it out, but it can't figure it out. I get broken up with, and I instinctively know what's the best thing for me in the moment. I haven't planned it. You just got to it's much easier that way. It's much easier to follow that truth rather than trying to figure everything out, which is exhausting, and it's often just wrong. So yeah, that's my thank you. It's just my share. Don't buy into the bullshit in your head.
Thank you. I love that.
Totally.
And honestly, I think if you get 15 minutes for a talk, like we do way more preparation for 15 minutes than we would for a 3-day.
We do about 4 minutes.
But yeah, probably most of it is bollocks.
It's probably bollocks, yeah. No, this is it, Flick, Trying to figure everything out. Constantly on this search for truth. Trying to figure it all out. Trying to figure out life.
How am I going to be in the future?
How am I going to be in the future? What's the future going to be like? What's it going to be like after the pandemic? Is the pandemic ever going to come to an end? We're always in the future, in the past. Always in the future or in the past. We're not, but we time travel in our mind all the time. We're forever time traveling. We're never present in the moment. The only time that life's ever actually truly taking place. Another one of my favorite quotes of Jesus Christ was, "Become passers-by. Understand you are seeing each moment for the first and last time." That's it. That's all that's happening. We're not traveling through time. Time's traveling through us. Now doesn't go anywhere. It's always now.
I was thinking earlier on, Dave suggested that we, Dave used to be a tree surgeon. He's got all this wood and he said we should plank up this piece of cherry. And I've seen him use this machine before, and like I get really nervous about this machine.
It's called a sawmill.
Yeah. But it's got this huge saw on it. And I was there when Dave, at one of the last jobs you did, where you nicked your finger with a chainsaw and how much, like, it had to have surgery. And so I've got like all this thinking about using the machine, and I was like, I'll just watch. And you're like, you can have a go. I'm like, no, I won't be able to have a go. And then when we got down there and I actually had a go, it was fine. And I was really present. I was really aware of where the blade was. But I could see how I was in such an adrenaline rush before I even got there at the idea of using this machine. Like, yeah. I kept telling you, I'm scared of that machine. We've been doing loads of stuff with saws and things recently, and I realized how much thinking I have about it all. But when I was using it, it's like I was really present, aware, and
you did really well,
and knew what to do. But it's like in my imaginings, I don't know what to do, and I haven't got any common sense, and I'm going to put my finger in it, but it's like
you're going to shave your eyebrows off with it.
Yeah, we forget how much common sense built into us. Like when we're present in the moment, we know what to do. And like Flick was saying, like our imaginings of how we're going to be, we torture ourselves with. We keep ourselves up at night. But then when we arrive at the moment, and we know how to be, we know what to do, because we're built to live in the moment. That's where we find ourselves present, and that's where wisdom lies. But we get totally lost in our imaginings as if they're true. And then if we've had something happen in the past, we think, oh, no, that's happened in the past, it's going to happen again. So again, we're constantly doing this time travel.
Comparisons.
But I saw it today, like, wow, when it's my thought of it is so much worse than actually doing it. It was fine. It's like getting into cold water. We've been trying to do some outdoor swimming over the winter. I've only done it a couple of times, but you stood on the edge, you're like, oh God, and then you get in and you're fine. But the thinking about it, and the more time you spend on the edge, like making a big deal out of it, you can see that we do this with so many things. We're so used. Here comes Rust.
Here he comes.
There's no food.
I love what Flick said. Your mind wasn't that all your thoughts suddenly turned into acceptable thoughts. You had the awareness of what was going on. That's massive, Flick. That awareness is life-changing.
Yeah, and I kind of just want to add with that, if you don't mind me butting in, like,
Please.
I think we have this expectation that we should always feel comfortable. And that's just not what life is. And so having uncomfortable thoughts is like, it's just, which make you have uncomfortable feelings. It's quite a normal thing to experience, but it doesn't have to cripple us. It's like, okay, it makes sense that I feel uncomfortable right now, but I'm not going to make a big deal of it. It's just life. I don't need to make it worse. So many strategies I've had for like healing and therapies are trying to always fix how I'm feeling. And it creates a lot of work. Like every thought you have, you've got to reframe. You're like, well, how about I just feel okay feeling a little bit uncomfortable for a while? How about I feel okay when it's raining outside? And I think that's what's really changed for me, is just being okay with not feeling okay. And then it goes away quicker.
I love
Thanks
that.
for letting me butt in.
No, you but. What yeah, no, just what kind
I think Catherine wants to butt in.
What I hear in that, Flick, is rather than trying to fix, you accept. Acceptance. Not very many people accept life for how it is. Acceptance is one of the things that emerges from awareness. As we become more aware, to become more aware is to move more towards love. Because fundamentally, that's what everything is made of. acceptance. When we love people, we accept them for who they are and what they are. When we fall in love with an individual or somebody else, we suddenly there's no problem with them. They're perfect. They can't do any wrong. We accept them, warts and all. In fact, it's cute. Your warts and all's cute. Then after a little period of time, the honeymoon kind of wears off, and that unconditional love that we experience suddenly becomes very conditional, and you're starting to piss me off a bit now. What once looked cute is starting to look really annoying. The acceptance starts to disappear. Relationships end up on the rocks. We end up creating more, bigger stories about one another. But acceptance is born of love, understanding. And this comes with higher states of what people call higher states of consciousness. What people would say is greater awareness of self. The true self is absolute perfect love. Perfect love. And I can't explain why. I don't know why it is. Why is it love? It just is. It just is. I can't explain it because I can't explain what it is. I can't explain what love is. It's the unifying field. I suppose I often think that's why when people fall in love, they become like a singular entity. The connection they feel. They feel connected. To fall in love is to feel connected to a person, to an animal, to a place, to a tree, to a view, to a piece of music, to a piece of art. When we feel that love, you feel connected. All things are connected. They're all one. It's just the collapsing of duality is the falling in love. You fall in love. You realize love from within yourself. Love emerges from within yourself. You are that. That is what everything fundamentally is. And when fear dies, we are left in this state of peace, acceptance, and tranquility and perfection. And acceptance is born from that. When we touch that space and you start to gain awareness into the nature of life, acceptance is born from that place. And the moment we find acceptance, healing is instantaneous. If people woke up tomorrow morning around the world and just accepted each other, there would never be another war. There would never be a fallout. I would accept. I accept you as you are. I accept you have your own reality. I understand you have your own reality. I see that you live in your own world and I cannot see it, but what you do and what you say makes sense to you in your reality. It looks real to you. It looks so real as my reality looks to me. Yours looks to you. I accept you. I accept your reality. I don't have to like it, but I can accept it. It's like acceptance. When we're in acceptance, we're not at war. People go to war with their own minds expecting to find peace. There is no peace to be found at war. Ever. You cannot bomb your way to peace. You cannot fight your way to peace. As long as you are at war, you are in conflict. The suffering is created from that. And people go to war with their own minds. They're trying to fix themselves. I've got to fix myself. I've got to fix myself. I mustn't think like this. Why am I thinking these thoughts? I hate myself. I hate myself. They go to war with themselves, like psychological motor neurons disease. But Flick, what you spoke about was acceptance. And the moment we find acceptance, peace emerges. Has to. Because the two are one. Peace emerges and the fight finishes. The weapons are put down. And the moment the weapons are put down, the war's over. And that's what people are starting to find more and more and more within themselves. They're finding acceptance for themselves and they're finding acceptance for the world. It can't be any different to what it is. The world cannot be anything other than what it is right now, given the way humanity has thought up until this very present moment. Given what humanity has understood about itself and life. it's believed in an external reality. So of course it's created a world which is totally diminished of things, because it's assumed that all its happiness and joy has come from stuff, money, finance, power. That's where my safety lies. My safety lies in money. That's why the world is completely not exploited. But when people start to raise their level of awareness to the nature of life, and they realize, oh no, security ultimately doesn't, I can be secure anywhere, because security is a state of mind. That's why we've seen so many homeless people who are happy. Some of the happiest people I've ever met have got nothing. Some of the most secure people I've ever met have zero in their bank account. They don't even have a bank account. In fact, they didn't even have food. But they had love and acceptance and joy in their hearts and gratitude for life. They had nothing. Where do we truly believe that security lies, happiness lies, freedom lies? At the moment humanity is going through a big transition and waking up, it is starting to realize that it is an internal, reality is an internal event. Reality is a psychological experience from birth till death. Everybody's dreaming a different dream, but it's all a dream. And that is going to change the world. It has to, because it comes with consequences. It comes with consequences for those that wake up. Those people become free. They don't need things as much as other people. Their happiness isn't dependent upon favorable circumstances. They accept. Catherine, love, you put your hand up.
Yeah, it's going back to what, a little bit to what Flick said, really. I've got a bit of a situation next week. I've got to go to court next Tuesday to give evidence. And I've never done anything like that before. I've not done anything wrong. It's just evidence regarding an accident that I didn't witness, but my daughter was in an accident and I was looking after her after the accident. So that's all it's about, what my role was in looking after her. So normally I'd be going to bed worrying, thinking, oh, what if I say something wrong? What if they trip me up? What are they going to be asking me? I'd be thinking all that, but what's the point of worrying about all that when I've no idea what they're going to ask me? I've no idea how I'm going to feel. So all I have to do is really stand up there and tell the truth, what happened in my reality. So why am I worrying when all I've got to do, well, I'm not worrying. So why would I worry when all I've got to do is tell the truth? So like you said as well, Flick, if I feel absolutely fine now, but next Tuesday, I might feel uncomfortable, but that's okay, because I'm doing something that I'm not normally doing. I'm out of my comfort zone. And then when it's over and done with, that's it. I'll be back to, hope it's all going all right. But there's no point me worrying about it, because worrying's not going to change anything. I've no idea what's going to happen next week. So why even think about it? That's pretty much it.
That uncomfortableness, Catherine, whiplash.
It is.
Yeah, I got whiplash.
She robbed a bank.
Bloody Blackpoolite. It's true. None of us know. None of us know what tomorrow holds. Tonight, rest of tonight holds. It's always an unknown. Life is an unknown. Continuously, we're continuously living in an unknown. It's nothing new. It's nothing to be afraid of. But you're right. I'll wait and see. We're going to take a 10-minute break. So I think everybody's, I always say this, like people in the UK, it's 10 minutes, but it's 10 minutes wherever you are in the world, apparently.
So
So
we make it 22 minutes past 8. So we'll come back at
in 10 minutes.
32 minutes.
Right. See you soon.
Still recording, or did you just press record? We recorded the whole break.
Did it?
I didn't press record unless you just did.
No, I didn't.
We just recorded that.
Hang on, but it's just said recording now.
Did you pause it? Or did you just...
Gonna do an experiment. 1 second. We just recorded ourselves eating.
No, I didn't. It just
I didn't.
recorded. There's no sound or video.
Let's pause it for now. Be professional. Oh, more eaters. The Hardingham side. Excellent. Everybody's eating.
This is Trisha made jelly with banana and goat's yogurt,
Wow.
which is just magnificent. And you're having a Baileys.
I'm having a Baileys.
Nice.
That's where we are.
That's proper indulgence.
Yeah.
Christmas.
That's proper still Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's for long.
Nice. Bringing it right out.
Why not? No, it's just an extension, isn't it? With lockdown, we can just carry on.
Yes, there's nothing stopping.
Every
that.
day's a holiday.
Yes.
People are around.
Start every day as a holiday.
Yeah, I like that.
Why not? Mm-hmm.
Get up looking forward to whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And I see Hannah's got her chef behind her. That's nice, Hannah. Yeah, just preparing you, rustling you up a nice little meal. That's nice. Welcome back. Good to see everybody's stuff in their face, because we just have. Any more questions? Any more comments?
When you were talking about reality, it reminded me, I don't know, it sort of transversed me across to those films, the Matrix films. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Where people thought they were in reality, but they weren't. They were being manipulated and there was something else. And that I just found that thought quite interesting, of what is reality,
yeah, and
how different reality is for different people.
That's right.
And then coming back to your theme about how people are and acceptance of people are, and the love related to that. Yes, love helps you appreciate other people and accept other people. But how do you deal with people that are obviously, in my words, wrong? So if you see somebody kicking a dog, how do you react to that? You don't accept that, do you? You don't, out of love, think, well, that's what the person is, so he's, they obviously think they obviously want to kick the dog. There's a frustration.
He's hurting inside, and that's
yes, well, that's why he's doing it, but is that acceptable? I don't, and I'm sorry, that's a very simple example, but if you then look at what Trump was doing last week, or what
Mugabe,
Mugabe does, and what the Chinese government does to minorities in China, then how do you react? You don't accept that.
Totally, I totally understand what you're saying. What we're never about telling anybody how to live. People come to us and go, what do you do in this situation? What would you do? That's never for us to give an answer to. It's not for us to tell somebody how to live a life. What we're talking about is fundamentally, how is it that things come about? How is it that reality comes about? The person who kicks a dog is responding to a thought. Thought is the thing that creates feelings, is the thing that creates behavior, no matter what it is. Those people who stormed the Senate couldn't have done so without thought. They couldn't have organized it without thought. They couldn't have executed it without thought. And they all did something different. They all did something different because they all had different thought in the moment, and they were all acting upon thoughts. The only thing we have to act on, because it's the only thing that guides us through life. And so people who live, I used to live in an awful lot of frustration and anger, and I was violent. I was violent. I went to prison for violence when I was younger. I was lost in my mind. I see it clearly. I remember the thoughts I used to have. When I woke up, I realized, like Flick, it's not that I don't still from time to time a violent thought. I still have violent thought pop into my consciousness or emerge from my consciousness. I still get violent thought come in, but it's nothing. It's a thought. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything about me. It doesn't affect my day. It doesn't make me behave on it. But you see that the only thing that is ever creating behavior, creating separation, beating people up, putting people down, is thought. It has to come from thought. Everything is thought. So what would I do if I caught somebody kicking a dog? I've got no idea. But I do know that whatever occurs to me in the moment will be whatever I think about it, whatever thought comes to me in the moment, will be the thing that I will most likely act upon. So, for example, I had a bit of a do with my neighbour a little while ago now, a few months ago now. I had an argument with him. It was one of the first times I've lost my shit with somebody for a long time. I generally don't get angry. Very rarely do I get angry, but I really got angry and I really lost my shit with this fella. And he threatened to punch me. And I walked off and I called him a few names, and it was a really interesting thing for me. I really learned an awful lot through it. I saw, you know, I was disappointed in myself, I could say. After, I was like, why did you act like a total dickhead? Why did you have to act like a dickhead? I had to act like a dickhead because I had dickhead thoughts. And there was nothing else in there in that moment but dickhead thoughts. Therefore, I felt dickhead and I acted dickhead. Full stop. There was no other reason for it, because everything is born of thought. Every single emotion, every single feeling, behavior is born of thought. And whilst I had a head full of dickhead, I couldn't be loving. Because all there is this moment and thought, moment and thought. In fact, the moment is made of thought. Now, that didn't mean that I saw that moment the same throughout time, because after a couple of weeks, I phoned him up to apologize. And he didn't answer, so I wrote him a card. And I just said to him, you know, if there's one thing I've learned from this, is I've realized that acting like a dickhead brings me no peace in my life. It brings me no quality of anything in my life. It didn't bring anything of value into my life. It made you act more like a dickhead. I didn't say that, but it did. It made him act more like a dickhead. He did everything he could to get one over on us. And it was quite an interesting time, because I wrote him this card just saying, I'm sorry. I don't need your acceptance. Don't need you to accept my apology, but I am sorry. And my mother comes walking through with a letter from the council with all of his objections that he's put to my sister's planning permission. And all the work that we'd done, he'd objected to it, and he was trying to get my sister's planning permission overturned so she can't build a house on her land. And it was such an interesting moment, because this fella who I'd had such a beef with, who I just wanted to punch his lights out. And I was writing, in the middle of writing this card to him, just saying, I apologize, you know. And I said, halfway through it, my mum brought through this thing, and I sat there with this card in one hand and this letter from the council in the other hand, objecting to the fact that my ex-wife with her babies had been stopping on our bit of land in a caravan, because they were between houses and they had nowhere to live at that time. So they lived in a caravan on our bit of land for a month, which we told him about. And he wrote off to the council, and I received this letter at the same time I was writing a letter to him. And I realized in that moment, I have a decision. I have an option here. I can go with this letter from the council, and I can go down that line. or I can go with this letter that I'm writing. And I carried on writing my letter. And I took it round to him. He wasn't there, so I gave it to his son. And he said, I'll pass it on. Now, I saw that man for the first time the day before yesterday. And as I walked past him down our lane here, I live in the Lake District, so down our lane, he was walking towards me with his family, well, his wife and his daughter, young daughter. I said, how are you doing? You all right? He wouldn't even look at me. He still bears the grudge. He carries that grudge with him. He carries the past around with him now. He's carrying the past around with him. He won't let go. And I get it, because I used to be like that, because I used to feel like if I carry this grudge, then somehow I'm punishing that individual. I'm affecting them. I'm giving them what they deserve if I carry this grudge around. I'm hurting them. They'll feel this. No, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel the suffering he was experiencing as he walked past me. I felt empathy and compassion. And his wife said to me, she said, how are you doing? You all right? I said, I'm really well, thanks. Yeah, look, Happy New Year to you all. And she went, and you too. And we carried on walking and went our separate ways. I noticed his wife wave at my sister's caravan. But it's not that you condone action. You don't have to condone action. It also doesn't mean go and act like a dickhead. I couldn't in that moment have been anything other than dickhead, because I was totally engrossed in the reality of dickhead that I was experiencing. I was totally lost in my head, totally lost in thought. It looks so real, it's so convincing. I mean, the reason why this is so, we have to talk about this subject is because the illusion of reality is so convincing. Unless we question it, we're never going to wake up, because it's so real. We think the world we see is real. It was interesting because when I saw that man, I just wanted to punch his lights out. He's a total bellend. I just can't stand you. A few days later, I'm looking at that man and I'm like, no, you're scared. You're scared that around your home, which you take a great deal of pride in, things are changing. And you're afraid. So because you're afraid, you're like my little Jack Russell. And when he gets scared, he bites you. He fights. Because he's afraid, he's attacking. That's what he does. And I could see his innocence. I could see my innocence in it all too. And because I could see the innocence in his behavior, because it looks real to him. He is afraid. There's nothing actually happened on that bit of land now for 3 years, 2 years, 2-3 years. Yet all the time he's afraid of what's going on the land. He has no peace in his life. He's living in a story. He's living in a thought-created reality that is so convincingly real to him, he doesn't get to settle down and enjoy his beautiful home because he's so busy trying to defend his castle. All his armaments are up and he's on full attack. But nothing's happening on the land. He's just lost in his own mind. And he's trying to defend himself, and I get it. And the moment I saw that, the moment I realized, I remembered how life works, I felt nothing but compassion for him and love, and genuine, heartfelt love and compassion. I remember saying at the end of my letter, look, I think you're a really good man. And I think you've got a beautiful family, and one day, perhaps, maybe, we could sit down and have a pint together. Maybe we could just grab a cup of coffee and just get to know each other, because I'd really like that. And I meant it. The reality changed. The circumstance was the circumstance, but my experience, the reality of it was a never-changing thing. It evolves. It goes from I want to batter you into the ground to I want to go for a cup of coffee with you. I cannot stand your guts. I actually love you. And when I say love, I mean have deep compassion and empathy and kindness towards you. And I genuinely mean it.
I think that inspired our our group last week was called, it was inspired by two things. One of them was Booja Booja chocolates, because they have little messages in, and it was love when everything's pressing you to be less. And then I think it'd been around all of this insight you've been having around that experience. And it can be so easy to feel justified in negativity and be righteous. And I think sometimes people hear this and they think maybe we become passive.
Or they call it spiritual bypass.
And we realise that it is just, we accept everything it is and we live in this. But it seems when we can see life as is, our come from is different. And like, I loved, when I first came across this, I got to go to America and do some filming in the jails and the prisons and meet different people. And I saw my own ego and judgment about these kind of people, my ideas of who I thought I was going to meet. And once I got in there, I just met other human beings. And when we got into the conversation around this, you realize the humanity that exists within people, regardless of what they've done in their lives and their behavior. And the stories that I heard were of love for their family, regret for what they'd done. But a lot of them said they were in some way pleased to have ended up in prison because they got to learn about this and they know that their life's going to be different. It was, I think that experience of witnessing people who are physically not free, but waking up and finding freedom really impacted me. And I got to find so much love for those people, and that realization that we're only responsible for our world. And I can see, like, we get a tenseness when we're being righteous, when we think we're right. And when we can see through that and come back to presence, the way that we speak to people will be different. And like, I've loved watching my dad work with kids, because he used to be a head teacher. He's a retired head teacher, but he still does a lot of work around this understanding with children. And he's worked with children who have been like kicked out of different schools. And same with my auntie, actually. She used to work in a unit where they'd been through every single school, and then this was the point where it's the only place that would take them was this unit. And it was like, if you can look at someone and only see their goodness when they can't see it for themselves, it didn't mean that they were passive. It didn't mean that they put up with any kind of behavior, but you could see how differently these kids responded to them compared to some of the other teachers, because they weren't being judged. They weren't being seen as bad. You were seeing the goodness that exists at the heart of everyone. And I think it's I've said to Dave, I don't think we could go to India, because I've spent a lot of time in India and I've seen how animals are treated in India. And there's been times I've just had to turn away. And I thought, one of the things you've said, I know I've got a lot of ego around animal cruelty and I haven't seen through it yet. You don't actually know how you'd react. Were you confronted with something? But
I could never know.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know if I'd put you through that, because I witnessed so much cruelty when I was in India. Just not everyone at all, but certain places that I visited. But I was so grateful to have the understanding about life, because I didn't hate people and I didn't think they were bad people. I had compassion, and it allows us to connect with people even when we see things very differently. Like, we have a friend who was a strong Trump kind of hater, and her housemate was a pro-Trump. And she said, we love each other regardless of our belief systems, and we can connect in a different place. We don't have that conversation. And I think as we start to realize that we're responsible for our own world, like you said, suddenly you found peace and love and compassion where you'd been living in hate and hostility and judgment. Like, where do we want to live? And
I know my life's happier in that space than in the suffering.
And then what you bring to the world is something so different. Like, I know the lady that took me into the jail system in America was a lady called Gabriella, and she used to just speak, what is your come from? Where are you coming from? Are you coming from love and understanding, or are you coming from fear and judgment?
Self-righteousness.
And it's the beautiful thing is we have a guide to where we're coming from, and that's our feeling. Like, I know when I'm getting righteous and I'm right and I need to like convince someone else, and I know when I'm listening and I'm open, and the interaction's so different. And I think that's the beauty of this. Like, none of us need to be told how to be in life, but you can see that when we have belief and judgment and we see through that, it will color everything, and we don't then see the person or the world as it is. It's colored through our thinking. And I think this seems to just allow us to recognize, in the same way Flick was speaking, like, I became aware. We raise our level of awareness about what's going on. And I always used to, one of the things I could say after I came across this, I said, I've just become really suspicious of what I think. I'm so suspicious of my own mind, because I've blindly believed it for such a long time, and I haven't created a particularly nice life. But this little bit of suspicion seems to have opened the floodgates to all these deeper feelings. And like, I remember driving back into the village I grew up in. I'd been there 20 odd years, and I was actually in the village, and I was seeing things for the first time. And like, how have I not noticed like these amazing thatched roofs where they've had like a pheasant thatched into it? Oh, peacock, yeah. That's it. And it's like, how have I not seen this? Where's my mind been? And I think the presence of mind that comes to us, I've been surprised sometimes how I've reacted in the face of negativity or judgment or misbehavior. And then there's times where I totally react. I've missed it. But like you get to learn. You get to learn. I remember it being spoken about by Dr. Keith Blevins. He says, you are the first recipient of what you think. And that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And I remember just sat in the audience like, wow, that's a big statement. But how many times have we held on to things or resented or judged, expecting it to have an impact on someone else?
Not just people, but circumstances that have come up in our lives where we've just resented it. You know, it's like, we think that those circumstances and those people are creating our resentment. They're not. We create our own experience of life. We create our own reality, and we do it with our own mind. And what we think is how we experience life. It's what it appears to us as. It's how it feels. That's what mental illness, what people call mental illness is. It's thoughts. It's not illness. I was diagnosed with mental illness. It's diagnosed with chemical imbalances and all kinds of things. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with people. They're lost in their illusion of life. But the thing is, the problem is that the people who are trying to help them out in the mainstream kind of background are lost in the illusion of life too. So you end up with this situation where people who are in suffering are taken deeper into suffering, in the idea that somehow if you focus on suffering, it brings about happiness. No, you focus on suffering, your reality is created from thought. If you think about suffering all the time, that's all you're ever going to experience. If you want to experience joy and happiness, those thoughts have to be let go and allowed to manifest new thought of happiness and joy. It's the only way it works. There is only one thing taking place. There's only one reality. But this one reality has an infinite amount of faces. So it's like, it's that whole, when you become aware of it, you become wiser. Wisdom's what this world needs. It doesn't need more knowledge. We're swimming, we're drowning in knowledge. What this world needs is wisdom. What people need is wisdom. It needs wisdom. Wisdom comes from love. It does not come from fear. There is no wisdom found in fear. Fear destroys lives. It creates war. It creates hostility. There is no wisdom to be found there. Wisdom is found in love and all the attributed experiences of love, compassion, understanding. But that all comes about with awareness. Like Flick was saying, that awareness, as you become aware, you become accepting of your own mind. I accept that I'm having these frigging mental thoughts right now. It's not me now. I'm going to get on with talk. Anyway, thoughts, I've got a talk to do. You get on with life. There's your wisdom.
It reminds me, there's a lady that came to a retreat years ago from Egypt, and she said how she lived in America a lot as a kid and grown up with pets and things, and she realized how she needed to help educate people of how to treat animals, and to like she would get the stray cats and have them injected and all those things that needed to happen, and then she'd try and get them adopted out, and she wanted to educate people about how to treat animals because she realized that culturally there's a different view on them. But she said it didn't come from all the anguish and all the hurt that she'd felt about it, or she experienced that first, and then she said as she was learning about this, she said something shifted in her and she got this new thought. Now what they need is education and understanding. That will be how they then start to see animals different. And she said it was such a strange thing because she saw the innocence in the behavior, because it was just this cultural belief that's how you treat animals here. And she's done something, and she has like a centre now out in I think it's in El Guna, where she now works with educating people, rehoming cats. And you can see how when we're not in judgment and hate, we get new ideas and we're inspired of like, well, how can I help this? How can I serve? And like, I know Mother Teresa always used to say, I'll go on a peace rally, but I won't go on an anti-war march. And it's kind of coming from that same place of what are we wanting to bring to the world? And I think that was the other thing that you experienced after sort of falling in love and acceptance with your neighbour, is what do I want to put into the collective? Like in this one life, this one mind that we all are part of, what do I want to put into it? And one of the talks that Sydney Banks gave, apparently, I haven't heard the talk, but it was said that he was saying, I'm just as much use tending to my garden as I am out giving talks, because he absolutely loved his garden and he was so present. He knew that in consciousness would help the whole. And I think that's one of the things that we've started to realize, like, we're so lazy with what we think. Like, how easy are we to judge or to get into this? And it's almost like if you want the world to look different, we've only got one place to look, and that's within. And if we can start seeing humanity and beauty in the world as is, I don't know, we're more inspired then and have creative, resourceful ideas that are different than the habitual thoughts that we've always had. And I think that's what the world is looking for: creativity, new ideas, innovation. And I think it's happening.
And all along it's looking for love. It's looking for happiness. Every single step we take in life is a step in the hope that's going to bring about happiness and joy. Every single job we take, oh, this job is going to bring me more money and security, and I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be okay. It's going to be good. We've got a good future ahead of us. We're always looking for security and happiness. Didn't even know Emma was on.
Emma, you're right for us. Oh, you've written it to everyone, but Emma's just said.
Where is Emma? Oh, she's there, but I'm right.
She hasn't got a camera on. She's saying that I work with young people in supported housing and definitely agree with what you're saying, as when we see people as perfect and beauty and whole, then the conversation and feeling of the interaction is very different. Now, I may not have lots of letters after my name or a degree, but it appears I receive more deep, meaningful conversation with the young people I work with, and that's due to me not having any agenda present and see their wholeness without waiting to be exposed, as it's just currently covered up.
It's beautiful when you talk to the humanity within people. You don't talk to the story that perhaps we've been told about them. And going into prisons, it's like, having been to prison myself and then gone into prisons to work in there to share this message with people in prison. You know, they're people. Some of them have done some really nasty shit. Some of them stuff that, you know, you can't say is acceptable, but it's happened. But the person you actually meet You know, whenever you go and meet a prisoner, and you sit down in a room full of lads, they're just people. They're just people. I often talk about this lad, but it was such a beautiful, such a beautiful moment. I was with a lady called Jacqueline in Onley, and we gave her first talk when she first went in there. And this gypsy lad, what was he called? Alfie. This gypsy lad in there, we're talking about thought. You saw this lad's eyes suddenly go, bing. It's like, oh my God. Like, what's going on, Alfie? He said, just because I'm a gypsy doesn't mean I have to break the law. And we're like, yeah. No, you don't get it. Just because I'm a gypsy doesn't mean I have to break the law. And we're like, yeah. No, you don't get it. I've always believed I've had to break the law because I'm a gypsy. He said, me and my brother, and his brother was in this group as well. We've been sent down so many times. We've been in and out of prison all our lives. He said, because we keep breaking into places and stealing shit. And he's like, but I don't have to do that anymore. And when we spoke to him about it, he said, you know, and I remember the time, the night that he got sent down for the burglary that he got sent down for, his brother was buzzing, and his brother spoke about this in this group. Oh, the burglary we did, you know, he's in front of all the lads, he was being proper cocky. Yeah, you know, all bigging it up and everything. And Alfie was just sat there like, and Alfie said, that's not how I remember it. He said, I was terrified going to do that burglary. He said, I was scared. He said, my brother wasn't. My brother was proper idiotic. He was bouncing. He said, but I was terrified. He said, he was experiencing a different robbery to me. He said, in the gypsy culture, he said, you always have to obey your elders. Gypsy culture. And he said that night, this was the next week after he had his insight, the next week, he came in and said, you know what happened last week after we had this group? We're like, no. He said, my brother came onto my wing and he said, come on, we're getting out of here. He said, what do you mean? He said, we're breaking out. We're going home. And Alfie said, for the first time in my life, he said, after his realization, he said, I stood up to my brother, my elder brother. He said, I just said to him, no, I'm not going. I'm staying here. I like it here. He said, and then I waited to be punched. He said, and it never came. My brother just looked at me and went, all right, see you later. And ran off down the stairs. His brother escaped. He got caught and went back to his holding category A prison. And it's one of those things where
I think Alfie teaches now.
Yeah, he
like
does.
He's out of prison and he's
Yeah.
working beyond recovery and educating people.
Yeah,
with this understanding.
He's just one of the most beautiful one of the most alive, beautiful human beings you could meet. Lost in thought until he woke up and realized it. He saw his reality. All he saw was his reality was different to his brother's. Shit, then what have I been doing taking my reality so seriously? What else is possible within this reality? What other options do I have in life? What have I been missing? Thought is the most convincing thing. It will absolutely create reality that looks real. Absolutely. When we're unaware of it, when we're asleep, it's like we are physically asleep. We're just taken for the ride. When we have that awareness into the nature of thought, we're like, flick, I can have this thought. Doesn't mean anything about me or the circumstance. It's just an expression of consciousness in this very present moment. All of a sudden, you're not led by thoughts, you experience them. You become more in touch with truth. Truth. The very thing everybody's looking for. truth is never found in a newspaper or in a news article or on WhatsApp or on YouTube or anything like that. The only place truth exists is within ourselves, and we're made of it. It's us before the story we generate about our character, our ego. Truth's a spiritual thing, and it's love. And truth sets people free. That's why everybody's in search of it. But the thing that sets an individual free is themselves, not a story, not another thought. It's a realization into the nature of who they are and what they are. What they are. Scrap the who, what? Because what we ultimately all are is a divine force of consciousness that creates. There's a big word, very short word in the Bible for that. The creator. Everybody is that. Everything is that. Because there's only one of it. That's where truth lies. It lies in the simplicity and not in the complexity. The simplicity is the thing that never goes anywhere. The complexity is the ever-changing expression of it. The illusion of our life, the illusion of our reality, the illusion of ourself and the illusion of other people, the illusion of over here and the illusion over there, based in the illusion of time. The illusion of right and wrong and the illusion of good and bad. And I say the illusion of good and bad because to one person, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. It's all down to perspective. Perspective is thought. Everything is thought. Everything we're experiencing is a consciousness state, thinking. And as it thinks, so the world appears to be. It's the only thing that's happening. There is truly nothing to be afraid of in this life. Nothing. It's only a thought that creates the fear. And when you end up realizing you don't even need to be afraid of fear like Flick, then you're free. Freedom lies within. Truth will set you free. We're already, everybody's free, they just don't know it. Like a lad I once met in prison, argued with me the whole time. Come back the next week, said he went to bed that night, he said, and it hit him, he said, Dave, he said, it's true what you said. I said, I know it is. He said, no. He said, no, it's massive though, isn't it? I was like, yeah, it is humongous. It's nothing because it's just what is. But the realization is life-changing for people. And he said, his exact words were, Dave, I found freedom in prison. My prison was not these fences. He said, my prison was my own mind. He saw past the illusion of his own mind and he found freedom. And I know for a fact that once an individual finds freedom, their life is never the same. Once an individual realizes truth, they cannot go back to who they were because they won't accept it. It's not good enough. They realize that they're perfect. The world is perfect. Everything is perfect. It can't be anything other than perfection because it is what it is. And whatever is has to be perfect. It can't be any other way. To be any other way would suggest a duality. That doesn't exist. And there you have your acceptance. And there you have your peace. And there you have a beautiful life. With all its ups and downs, roundabouts and mad goings on in this ever dynamic lump of rock. With all these different realities taking place right now, infinite realities taking place on a single lump of rock. That's what's going on in this world. Infinite realities taking place right now. It's a really inexplicable thing that's truly taking place. It's a miraculous thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I was just going to say, through lockdown, we're going to do groups weekly, because we were doing them bi-weekly. So we're going to do one next Thursday. And also at the end of the month, we have an online retreat. So from the 30th of January to the 1st of February. And we're doing all of these things via donation at the moment. And we say, if people can't afford to pay, then please just pay it forward with random act of kindness.
Towards another person, for another person or a group of people. People can't afford to pay, please just pay it forward with kindness. Bring some love and light into this world.
And we have guest speakers, Lisa Elleray, who is...
Put your hand up.
There. And Dr. Dickon Bettinger and Elsie Spittle. Elsie Spittle was Sid's kind of first student. And she lives on Salt Spring Island off the coast of Vancouver. And she is a fantastic speaker.
Oh, we're so excited. We love the retreats.
At the end of the last one, Dave didn't want it to end,
Oh,
so it kept going and going, and then he ended up being like, we did another half a day a few days later.
It's so much fun. So yeah, like we say, it is via donation. So people will just say, look, if you pay what you can, awesome, and if you can't afford to pay, then just do something kind. But please come. Please come. It's 3 days. We'll probably be starting about 9:30, 10 o'clock till about 12:30, something like that. Have a couple of hours off for lunch, and then most of the days, I think, at least 2 of the days, I think, will be like starting again at 2.
Yeah, and then finishing at 4:30.
Yeah, it's like it'll be 4 hours over a day or something similar, something around that kind of thing. But yeah, if you can make it, that will be really fantastic. And if you know of anybody who you think might be interested, because I know a lot of people are sat around in a house doing naff all at the moment. There's plenty who aren't as well. But if you know of anybody who you think might be interested or might benefit, please just either get them to get in touch with us or forward us on the link. Forward them on the link. It can be found on our website, can it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it on there now?
Yeah.
Yes. So glad I've got her. She's brilliant. It's on our website.
I was going to say also, the retreat we did in November, that's available to stream on the website. Yeah. I think you can get to it from the homepage,
which is freedomthinking.co.uk. It's on there. So the information about the next upcoming retreat and the old retreat are both on there. Some beautiful responses to that last retreat, didn't we? So yeah, if you can make it, that would be really nice. Thank you, Amanda. Oh, thanks, Amanda, love. And thank you, Em, and Alice. Thank you, love. And Dan. Thanks, man. Let's call it an evening. Unless anybody wants to say anything. Has anybody got anything they want to say before we go? Or any questions before we go?
Hi.
Patricia, love.
I'm Tricia, really. That's my kind of formal name on it, for what I do. But I'm just going to say thanks very much for a very enlightening thought from us both. Yeah. I will come again, because there is some personal truths in what you've been saying that rings true even from childhood.
Yes. We recognize it. This is a beautiful thing. When it gets heard, you're going to go, yeah, of course. Yeah, you recognize it, because truth is truth for everybody. That's the beautiful thing about truth. We just speak words. That's not truth.
It's the truth within you, but it's the problem with the surroundings which tell you your truth is wrong.
Correct. We assume that's what's going on. Yes. That's the illusion.
Society can do that right from your own memory, the beginning of your own memory.
Yeah. Until you wake up and you realize that society never had a hold over your thoughts.
Exactly. But there is a continual fight with society if you're not careful. But that's something to be discussed, later.
Yeah. Absolutely. That is the thing. That is the thing that we need to free ourselves from. And that's that herd mentality. And when we free ourselves from that, you realize you have a free will. You've always had a free will. The
But
freedom.
I think the 21st century is an easier century from that point of view than the 20th. That's another essay title.
Beautiful. Tricia, thanks so much for joining us. Mr. Harding, what's your name, sir?
Richard.
Richard.
Richard, thanks so much for joining us.
Lovely.
Well groomed, Flick. Well groomed.
Yes, well groomed. I've got my Christmas jumper on.
I need to take grooming.
Yeah, I got my Christmas jumper and Bailey, so it's quite right. Finishing the bottle.
I'm right. It was a full bottle this morning, wasn't it? Good.
Okay.
I think you should call the title for this show "Head Full of Dickhead."
Head full of dickhead.
Well, it's all right. His name's Richard, so he's halfway there.
I can't believe you insulted our new guest.
Are we letting you down? Good.
Oh, thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Good to meet you.
Next Thursday, if you can make it, we're on again. So.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Mum.
Thanks. God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.